Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. And everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're having a wonderful day and you are ready for the show. Because today it's going to be all focused around one particular product, and that is BrainHQ. And if you haven't heard about that, this is going to be perfect for you because we have the, make sure this is the CEO of Posit Science and the developer of BrainHQ, all about how, you know, as people age, or even not even age related, but as people, you know, just kind of go through life, I'm sure you've heard it many times. People don't pick up new languages as well. They don't, they don't develop new concepts and hold them and retain them as well as they used to. And just in general, hey, brain no work as good. And it's products like these that can actually have proven effects to, you know, make them much better, react faster, you know, so many different metrics. And I'm really happy to talk with the CEO here in just a moment. But before we do that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, the live stream, the podcast. Everything you need to know will be at our website, including in the show notes for today, a link. You can, of course, head on over to brainhq.com, but of course, we'll have a special link in the show notes. And hey, computeramerica.com. That's all you need to remember. Yeah, I think that's the best way to say that. So everyone, let's go ahead and get things started. I'm looking forward to, to having this conversation. And, there's a big partnership with Tom Brady. If you're a huge football fan, I know that, so often, unfortunately myself, every one of my friends is a huge football fan, and I'm always just sitting there like, hey, this is a pretty good dip. But yeah, I'm sure for everyone out there that is a sports fan and a technology fan, this is going to be especially cool for you. So let's go ahead, bring on our guest. Once again, the CEO of Posit Science, developer of BrainHQ, Dr. Henry Mahncke. There we go. Doctor, how you doing? Welcome back onto the program.
It's nice to be back. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, our pleasure. And so I'm happy that you're able to join us. Let's go ahead and get a quick background of, Posit Science, BrainHQ, what's the relationship there, and then a bit of background on yourself. Have you, have you always been in technology and services like this? Some background.
Well, it's a Computer America show, so maybe I should dig deep and say, hey, like a lot of kids, when I was little, my parents got me a Commodore 64. If folks on the show can remember that far back, and plugged it into the TV and learned how to program in BASIC. So yeah, and surfed around at 300 bits per second on my modem to go to BBSs and download cracked software from. So those were the days, and how much it's all changed. And
sorry to cut you off like right here as you're beginning. I just have to say that a lot, like an overwhelming majority of security researchers and stuff like that, all of them tell fond stories of hacking like Bell and Bell at AT&T, and hacking the phone system with the dial tones and stuff like that. Like that's how all the security research, like going back to the early days, like you were talking about, that's how everyone got their start. So I'm glad that you share that experience as well. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
People are curious. They like to try things out. You start down a rabbit hole and you just want to see how far you can go. So, kids are like that, and kids are like that then, and they're like that now too in different ways. And mostly it's good. It's good.
For sure.
So, I did that as a kid, and then I ended up going to grad school in neuroscience. So I studied brain science out here at the University of California, San Francisco for my PhD. And I worked in a lab that studied brain plasticity, which kind of gets at what you were talking about in the introduction. Brain plasticity is the idea that the brain is constantly rewiring and reorganizing itself. And hey, that's a new idea, right? If you rolled the clock back to 1970 and you asked any neuroscientist, how does the brain work? Everyone would have said the same thing. And it's good to be on Computer America because everyone would have said, hey, the brain's like a computer chip inside your head, right? It's got wires, it uses electricity, it processes information, sounds like a computer chip, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone agreed. But that led to some really wrong ideas about how the brain works, because mostly what people thought was, well, hey, after you're maybe 7 or 8, you kind of have the wiring you're going to have for the rest of your life. And all that happens after that is your brain wears out over time, or maybe it gets, bumped and damaged, but, it ain't going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And in fact, that's what I was taught all the way through grad school in the 90s. And the lab I was in was run by a researcher, Mike Merznick, and he turned that idea on its head. And, if your listeners walk away with anything today, Ben, I hope what they walk away from is that, hey, nobody thinks the brain's like a computer chip anymore. We all recognize, hey, it's an organ of the body, and it's constantly reorganizing and rebuilding itself in response to what you ask it to do. And once you think about the brain that way, that when we're kids, it changes. When we're adults, it changes. When we get older, it changes. When we have healthy brains, they rewire. When we have unhealthy brains, they rewire. It's just kind of how the brain works. Once you really appreciate that, then you start to really have a really expanded notion of what we can do with brains and human performance.
Yeah, and of course, then you can start to, instead of saying, well, it's set in stone, now we just have to mitigate and, make sure things don't break down as fast as they can. Now we can actually train and, kind of do more. Before I go any further, I mentioned Tom Brady, kind of before the show, but I wanted you to talk about this relationship, because when it comes to, kind of brain health and, just making sure everything stays in top shape, I could imagine pro athletes would want that for so many reasons, but also more specifically for football. There's been a lot of discussion about, just cognitive impairment and, kind of helping to repair and sustain and that kind of thing for pro athletes. I would love to hear what your partnership with Tom Brady has really highlighted.
It's a great question, Ben. And when we started, so the company I work at is called Posit Science. We spun out of UC San Francisco to basically take this idea of brain plasticity, out of the lab and build, real world brain training programs that people could use to sharpen their cognitive performance. And, when the company was founded, my advisor called me up and he said, hey, Henry, we've helped a lot of rats get better brains, helped a lot of monkeys get better brains. Why about time to help some people get better brains? So that's a pretty compelling reason to start a company. So that's what we did. But, you're right how you lay it out. When we started, we figured originally, hey, this is going to be useful for, let's say, people who are getting older and maybe worried about cognitive decline. They want to bounce back. And almost certainly there's an application for people who've had something bad happen to their brains, right? Maybe they've had a concussion, maybe they suffer from mental illness or ADHD or something. And those were the areas that we sort of founded the company and did our first work on. But what became clear after a while was that, this kind of technology of rewiring the brain, it actually can help just about anyone get a better brain, no matter where they are. And frankly, the reason we came to realize that on the science team and across the company is because of the call we got from Tom Brady and Alex Guerrero back in the day. So, literally, we got a call into our customer service group, and a guy left a message saying, hey, do you know that Tom Brady's using BrainHQ? Do you want to learn more about that? And we looked at each other and we said, we did not know, in fact, that Tom Brady was using BrainHQ. And yes, we would like to learn more about that. So, we set up the call. We talked to Alex Guerrero, who I'm sure you know is his personal trainer. And then, got invited out to Foxborough, hopped on a plane, and, really had this incredible experience where we met with Tom and Alex. And, at that time, Tom had a personal group of brain imaging scientists that he was working with to optimize his brain performance. And that's kind of an amazing thing to say out loud, right? But of course, the way Tom was thinking about it was, hey, I do a ton to optimize my physical performance. Makes me win more games, right? That's why I work out. That's why I do pliability exercises. Right. And hey, the brain's a part of the body. I would like to have a brain that helps me win more games as well. And so from the beginning, just to say it out loud, he thought about it about performance. It wasn't about preventing decline. It wasn't about bouncing back from an injury. It was just optimize my performance. I'm here to win more games for the Pats. I need a sharper, faster brain to win these games. So I'm going to do some brain training that works to give me that sharper, faster brain. And that really opened our eyes, because what we really started to appreciate was, well, hey, every brain is different. And, you and I could both be relatively healthy adults, but, our brain performance might be in very different places, just like our physical performance is in very different places. And these training tools, based on the idea of rewiring the brain, can, kind of no matter where you are, sharpen your brain performance to somewhere better. And really, to this day, I attribute that to this discussion we had with Tom and that team out in Foxborough in those early days.
Yeah, and that definitely turns, I'm sure, maybe your initial use case, and you're right, from rats and monkeys and so on, and of course in the medical field. But then of course you have this world-class athlete that, as you said, just has not just a specialist for personal training and that and physical development, but a whole team for his brain. That is very much not I think, especially myself, that may not be your normal use case, but it helped him. And if you could just kind of go through, what areas, and, this is getting into the product itself, what areas that he really wanted to focus on, because I'm sure playing football, things like reaction speed are important, stuff like that. What value did he really see from this product?
And so BrainHQ is composed of dozens of different brain training exercises. Some of them are more about speed. Some of them are more about attention. Some of them are more about memory or other skills. However, what unites every single one of them is that they're all designed to make the brain process information more quickly and more accurately. Because it turns out, as a neuroscientist, when you look at brains, you look at injured brains, you look at older brains, look at brains that just aren't so hot compared to brains that are in better shape. What do you see when you look at those brains? Well, from an information processing perspective, good brain performance means that information is being processed quickly and accurately. So every BrainHQ exercise targets that. When we talked to Tom in those first few meetings, because there were a couple out at Foxborough, what he said to us, to break it down to me, I'm kind of a lab rat, right? This was all kind of new to me coming into this. He said, look, I got 3 seconds from when I get the snap. I have to remember what play we're working on. I have to look down the field. I have to track several different receivers. I have to figure out, hey, which ones are actually on their routes and which ones aren't on their routes. And then which of those are open. And then, I have to make the throw. If it's a passing play, right? And I got to hit that incredibly precise mark, dozens of yards down the field in 3 seconds, right? Because I could have the best offensive line in the world, but sooner or later, I'm going to get sacked. So my brain has to be at peak performance, has to be fast and accurate. So at first, he was focusing on the exercises that focused on visual speed and performance. And there are quite a few in those. And, they're not necessarily reaction time exercises. We're not trying to make people like jackrabbits off the mark. What there are is what a scientist would call decision time exercises. You're presented with visual information on the screen, but typically for a short period of time, and your brain has to figure out, what's the right answer in a different exercise, in that short period of time. So it makes your brain more efficient at extracting information from the visual field more quickly and more accurately, and helping you make the right decision on that basis. And you can see, how that would help a quarterback, or frankly, people in all kinds of sports. So here's an example exercise, and I'll do my best to describe this on the radio, right?
You're good.
In one exercise, you're looking at the screen, and in the center of the screen, you see something pop up. And, it might look like a little car or a little truck, to take an example. They're kind of similar, right? You have to really stare at the center of the screen to figure out which one you saw. Right. At the same time that happens, you also see something in your peripheral vision, like a stop sign or a road sign. And so you see both those things, and then you have to respond. Well, what did I see in the center of gaze? I need precise vision. Was it a car or a truck? And then where did I notice something in my peripheral vision? You have to split your attention. Well, it sounds easy. And if it's up there on the screen for 2 seconds, you can do it. I can do it. A monkey can do it. You can train a rat to do it, right? But what we do to make this brain plasticity-based training is we make it adaptive. So as you get it right, well, it gets faster and faster, just like going to the gym, right? Where you might lift more and more, or you might swim further and further. And so it gets more and more challenging. And so when it gets down to being on the screen for just tens of milliseconds, well, your brain has to be really fast and accurate to notice what's happening in the center of the screen, but also see everywhere in your peripheral vision. Now, you can immediately think, well, I could see that would be useful to me as a quarterback, right? I got to look right ahead of me because maybe I'm trying to notice a receiver, but I need to see what's going on in my peripheral vision in case I need to take a couple steps to avoid a sack, or maybe I'm going to convert this into a running play or what have you. And what Tom said is, hey, I see faster and more accurately down the field when I'm doing this, right? I can notice the difference.
Yeah.
And so that's what the right kind of brain training can do in terms of reorganizing your visual system to make you a sharper and a better performer.
So there's of course the science side of this, which you have certainly kind of touched on, but then there's also the customer side of this, which is if you, I guess, tailored this product in certain ways. I mean, and this gets into the metrics and measuring, but what I'm about to say is Tom Brady must be better than the average person at this to begin with. And,
Absolutely.
And when it comes to kind of finding someone's starting point and then improving upon that and then showing metrics that they are improving, it's not just, I click on butterflies faster than other people. Is that automated? Is that something that you had to kind of go out of your way to, make sure that everyone gets placed in the proper placement to then improve from there and not get frustrated?
You have to do a ton of work on that front. And the way these exercises works, if someone were to try them out, and we'll talk about how your listeners can do that in the next little bit, I suppose. But yeah, it asks you a few questions to kind of get a rough sense of where you are, and then it starts the exercise. And then very quickly, if you get the first one wrong, it's going to back way off just to make sure that it's slowed down or at a pace that's right for you. And if you get the first few right, well, it's very rapidly going to push you very fast and very hard. And in that sense, it's adapting to be challenging for someone who's superhuman like Tom Brady very quickly. But it also is going to dial itself right back down pretty quickly if, maybe you're a 85-year-old guy and, you fell down the stairs and had a concussion and your brain's not working so good. So, it can adapt in that same way. Here at the gym, right? They got 2.5 pound barbells that anyone can lift. And then they got, 500 pound squats that you have to be very strong, but it's the same kind of thing. And then that's very much how this kind of brain exercise works, to rapidly track to your correct level performance and then give you a challenge that's right for you. And that's how learning works in the brain, right? If you present things to people that are too easy, well, the brain's not going to rewire. It doesn't need to, right? It can already do this task. So at the same time, if you present people with challenges that are too hard, it's like climb up a mountain, right? Your brain can't even get a finger hold, so to speak, to start changing. So it has to be adaptive to get into that zone where you're getting maybe 75, 80% of them right. You're getting enough positive reinforcement to drive brain rewiring, but you're getting enough wrong that your brain's like, okay, I do in fact have to change my performance to be successful here.
And obviously for anyone watching the video portion, they can see me try and fail at a couple of these. I mean, it's
well, I'm distracting you, Ben, so you should blame me on this.
No. You're good. And honestly, they're very fun. I would say that they're kind of optimized not to be, I guess, the learning curve. I mean, they're very simple. You click on an image, you do that, and this is just obviously one. This is just a butterfly, and there's a lot of different things that you could do here. But I mean, it's a really good, I guess, kind of easy thing that I guess anyone with a tablet, with a computer or a phone can really just pick up and do. And I saw a chart somewhere up here saying 15 minutes or 45 minutes. How long does it take to kind of do this on a daily session? And then of course to, kind of see improvement over the course of weeks or months? Like, what's the time commitment that you're asking people for this?
We look to get people up to doing, 90 minutes of training over the course of a week and, broken into maybe 3 sessions per week. So maybe 30 minutes per session. Now you can mix and max that in all kinds of ways. And again, it's a lot like physical exercise, right? Some people do 2 big workouts a week. Some people like to go on a shorter bit, 4 or 5 times a week. What matters is you're kind of getting the total weekly minutes in, if I can put it that way. Gotcha. And for brain training, as well as physical exercise, don't do it all at once, right? Your brain's not going to change much. If you do 2 hours of exercise on Sunday and don't come back till 2 weeks later, I don't think you're doing anything very helpful for your brain. You got to make a habit out of it that way. That being said, it's not something you necessarily have to do every day, although we do have users who do tons of training every day. And people often ask too, well, do I have to do this every day for the rest of my life? And the answer is no. Again, like physical exercise, most people exercise and then, hey, something comes up, they take a break, they get busy, something happens at work and, they fall off the wagon, so to speak, and then eventually they get back on, and that's fine, right? It's not like a drug where as soon as you stop taking it, it washes out of your system and you don't get whatever the drug is supposed to do. Brain exercise as well as physical exercise, you do it for a while, you improve your performance. And if you need to stop for a while, fine, it's going to wear off slowly but surely. You're going to have to come back to it. But in that sense, we can build schedules that really, fit into people's lives as far as brain training is concerned.
I can imagine that the areas where people might want to improve in would either be areas that they really are dependent on, or conversely, I would imagine there are areas that they just don't, really meet in their day to day. If their reaction speed, if they're sitting at a job, being an accountant, reaction speeds might start to suffer, and that's where I would guess BrainHQ would step in and give them exercises to help with kind of reaction speed. To your point, they would wear off. Yeah.
Right. There's actually ends up being two slightly different ways that people pick exercises. One of which, like you say, is very much, an opportunity for improvement model. I might see, I'm this good at attention and this good at memory and this good at speed. Why don't I try and work on the area that I have the most opportunity to improve in? I want to get them all up. That's very valid. Lots of users come to us that way. There's actually a great personal trainer in BrainHQ that people can just click, and every day it's going to pick the right exercises for you and typically bring you back to the ones you need to improve on the most. But let me just call out, because we're talking about performance here. Sure. There's a fair number of people who come to BrainHQ and, hey, maybe, like Tom Brady, like another professional athlete. I'll talk about another group of high performers in a moment. They're 95th percentile on speed, but actually that's not good enough, right? They're there to get to 99th percentile on speed. And so, we have users who come in and train quite obsessively on certain exercises, to just max out their performance in something where, milliseconds matter. When you think about any professional sports, right? Millisecond matters, right? Games can be won by a matter of inches, right? Depending on where they land. Yeah. And, on that front, one thing that was exciting for us last year is that we started working with United States Special Forces Command, SOCOM. And they came to us because they were looking for a cognitive performance training tool that they could use to sharpen the cognitive performance of every United States Special Forces operators, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marine Raiders, Air Force Pararescue. And just to be clear, they did not come to us saying, hey, these folks have head injury and we need them to bounce back. That's a whole different line of work that we're doing with them. They came to us and said, hey, these are the highest performing people in the world, and they need to be at that level of performance or better if they're going to go out and do the world's most challenging job. So again, here we're not talking about, remediating opportunities. We're talking about, again, like professional sports, taking people from, incredibly good to superhuman. And, and that's what the right kind of brain training can do.
Yeah, and of course, that's some high stakes. I'm glad that you were approached by that, because just improving in general on what is already great seems like a really, really good fit for this. By the way, I was kind of poking through the website here, and down here you have a number of the different exercises with the areas. One that I wasn't really expecting, I don't remember if we talked about this, and it's kind of funny to talk about memory on a show like this, but people skills. What's the deal with that? Because I know that you talked about things like ADHD and mental illness and things like that, but in particular, people skills I think are something that in an increasingly digital age, there's less face-to-face communication. There's more just voice or texting. What are people skills? How do you train them? Yeah. People skills are a core brain function. And a lot of times when people think about the brain, they think about the mind, right? The spirit and the soul, and who am I friends with? What are my relationships like? Those are all great ways to think about the mind. But when you look at the brain, it's a wet organ, 3.5 pounds, kind of floats in this salty solution inside your skull. And it's actually very, very clear at this point that, different parts of the brain do different things. You probably know this. You got parts that are specialized for vision, for hearing, for memory. There are also parts of your brain that are quite specialized for what we would call social cognition. There's areas of the brain that are very specifically related, let's say, to human face processing, right? They only really are active when we're remembering faces or recognizing people. And in fact, if you get damage to that area of your brain, you'll have a condition called face blindness, right? You'll see it's a person in front of you, but is it your brother? Is it your mother? It's, very hard for you to say because that part of your brain's not working. Right. So we built a set of exercises that are designed to improve those core aspects of social cognition. And they typically involve visual components like faces. They can involve auditory components like voices of people speaking, but all in a social context to give the brain training, exercise, reinforcement around those core social cognition techniques. So, for example, one of them is an emotion recognition task. So you'll see a face and they express an emotion. It doesn't tell you what it is, but humans are actually pretty good at recognizing kind of the 7 core emotions. So maybe you're going to see an angry face, right? Right.
And then that goes away quickly because all these exercises treat speed and accuracy. And then you're presented with 6 faces, and none of them are the person you saw before, but one of them is expressing the emotion that you saw before, and the other 5 are expressing different emotions. And your task then is to say, okay, which one of these, hey, it looks like you're getting right to it. Very impressive. Yeah. If you're able to see this on video, you get the idea. So, and so it's an emotion recognition. So what are we asking that social part of your brain to do? We're asking it to rapidly extract the emotional affect information. How's this person feeling? And then we're asking them to map that on, not to the details of the face, but to a whole other person who is feeling the same way. And so, as you can imagine, we've started to use these exercises with certain medical populations, right? These exercises are in trial in kids with autism, for example. Perhaps they'll be helpful. But I'll tell you one interesting story. We were working with another professional sports team, and this one has asked us not to comment on who they are. But sure. We were talking to the coach, and the coach was saying, hey, some of my players, they don't just use these visual exercises to make them faster. They're using the other exercises. And he had one player who talked about using some of these social cognition exercises. And the coach was like, well, look, this is a player who's had a lot of problems off field, right? He's the player where I get a call, like he's gotten into a fight and someone's got to, come bail him out. And, he's feeling like this is helping him, recognize how people are thinking and feeling and maybe get better control of his emotions. Now, I'm a scientist. That's one person. But, that's the kind of thing that we are looking to do with these kinds of exercises. And I think what that speaks to, again, is that we can all benefit from sharper, better cognitive performance. How many times have you been in a meeting and you just didn't quite get, hey, was that person frustrated with me or were they frustrated at the work that we were doing? Right? We all want brains that are high performing and can help us figure this kind of stuff out faster and better.
Since you have, worked with Posit Science and started BrainHQ, have you, how have these exercises and training really developed? And even just the past 3 years since you've been on, because I'm sure as you collect data, as you kind of see what works, what doesn't, what's and I'm sure you've changed the games, but you've also, I think, expanded the amount of categories and areas of improvement. How has that changed, and how do you predict that to continue to change in the coming years as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. When the exercises first started way back when, the first set were really just auditory exercises. We started off trying to sharpen people's hearing and auditory processing. We wanted to help people, have better memories for things that they've heard and those kinds of things. That's actually one of the other things Tom talked to us about when we first started working with him was, hey, these auditory exercises, I can keep better track of the playbook, right? You probably know what a pro NFL playbook looks like. There can be 100 plays in there, right? And they change them every week. So having a sharper, faster auditory system to keep track of what's been said and what we're doing next is important. We laid on visual exercises after that, which are really the core ones, again, that a lot of pro sports players are using. And after that, we built on these more advanced ones, like you saw, social cognition. We introduced these navigation exercises that are really target the areas of the brain that deal with orientation in space, mental rotation, reading maps, these kinds of things. I would say the biggest area of focus for us right now is, working more and more on progress feedback and performance feedback. Really from a user experience perspective, what do people want? We got all the data, right? And we're all a lot of science geeks at Posit Science, right? We can make graphs all day long, but a lot of time on, hey, what do people want to see in terms of their performance? How can we play the real numbers back to them through a lens that, helps them see what their brain is doing and how it's getting better over time? If you think about any wellness intervention, it's weight loss, physical exercise, diet, and nutrition, people are coming for it because they want results, right? No one joins Weight Watchers just for the hell of it, right? I think, a lot of the ongoing work is around, hey, how can we take kind of this heavy duty science of what BrainHQ is and turn those into things that, help people say, hey, this is what I was trying to get to and I got there and now I should get to the next level of performance. So a huge amount of work going on around that.
Yeah, and kind of like I was just saying, that everyone wants that before and after moment where they can say, look where I was, look where I am, and look how much I've improved. Thank you for answering that. I know that was a poorly worded question, but yeah,
you're right on target. Target.
I was just thinking that as these as these data sets get developed, and over the past couple of years, AI, machine learning has really entered the mainstream, and a lot of people's knowledge.
Yep.
I'm sure that maybe some of your exercises start to get better because you can see that people respond better to this or this. They and like you said, you're data guys. Do you think that your training is getting better over the years because some of these exercises it's it's just reaction speed,
you
whatever.
pull out all the right topics. So I think one of the most interesting areas right now that we're gathering data and acting on is, hey, we got millions of people doing these training exercises. Can we start to use these kinds of tools around machine learning to make better predictions around, hey, what's the optimal path through the exercises?
Yeah.
There's like 29 exercises. There's hundreds of brain training levels in BrainHQ. There's probably some paths that are on the average better than others, right? An obvious one is don't start with the stuff that's way too hard. We could probably all guess that. But within that, your exact path through the exercises and levels, which ones do you need to repeat? When's the right time for you to go on to the next one? And my individual path are probably somewhat different. And so that's another interesting, really topic of research for us is, hey, can we start to make these predictive machine learning models around, well, exactly, what should Ben get next to maximize his cognitive gains, and what should Henry get next to maximize his cognitive gains? Perfect. There's been a bunch of work done in that already. There's a personal trainer in BrainHQ that picks out this stuff for you. But, like you say, the concept of what you can do with that kind of learning algorithm changes dramatically as you go from, hey, I just sort of thought about it for a little bit to, hey, I got, tens of thousands or millions of data points now that I can work and build into my model.
Oh, and that's the great thing about my job is I get to say things, hey, wouldn't that be neat? And then other people have to go off and make it a reality. So I enjoy what I do. Let's talk about, a little bit about your competition in ways that we have a question here about how is BrainHQ different than other brain training apps? And then after that question, if you just want to branch that right into other types of activities that I think people promote to, kind of do what BrainHQ is promising to do, like playing video games, crosswords, that kind of thing. Talk about other apps on the market like yours, and then other activities that, are supposed to promote health like you do.
Well, Ben, you can open up your phone and you can search for brain games and you will find 1,000, maybe 1 million. You might never be able to scroll to the bottom because they probably add them faster than you can scroll at this point. So, hey, what's the difference between BrainHQ and these kinds of brain games? Well, you're never going to hear me call BrainHQ a brain game. We're not building games here, right? You want to play a game, go have fun. I love to play games, right? Go play some Overwatch, play some Call of Duty, break out Mario. I played a ton of Hades last year. Mm-hmm. Go play a game. What the difference between brain training like BrainHQ and brain games is that, hey, BrainHQ has been shown to work. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take Mike Merznick's word for it. You can go, and there are more than 200 papers published by independent academic scientists, usually not funded by us, funded by the NIH or what have you, that have used BrainHQ exercises and shown in gold standard randomized controlled trials, hey, these help people think faster, focus better, and remember more, right? People are happier, they're healthier, they're more in control after using BrainHQ exercises. That data is out there, the meta-analyses are out there, the reviews are out there, and there's just no other brain training group that has that kind of evidence behind it. And you don't even have to take my word for that. A leading group of Alzheimer's researchers a few years ago reviewed every brain training program out there available for adults. And the first thing they concluded was kind of terrifying, which is, hey, most of them have no science whatsoever. So that's a little distressing. And you might wonder, well, are you allowed to sell that? But, that's a question for another day. And of the ones that did have evidence, only BrainHQ had multiple gold standard randomized controlled trials showing that it works. And frankly, that lets us do the things that we do. So, we work with 11 Medicare Advantage plans across 30 states right now that make BrainHQ available to older adults at no cost. And the reason we can do that is because, hey, the science is there. The chief medical officers at these health plans look at BrainHQ and they say, yeah, that's the one we should pick. We work with public libraries. BrainHQ is actually available. You can check it out like an electronic book at more than 250 public libraries across the country. And again, the reason that library group chose us was, well, the science was there. The proof was there. It wasn't just some crazy random thing that I found on my phone. that's the reason TB12 picked us. Tom picked it and they told us this very kindly. They looked at several different programs and, they wanted to go with one that had the science and the research behind it. And of course, the proof was in the pudding. Tom did it and it worked for him. But, that's what led us able to work with an organization like TB12 that puts a high premium on this. And that's why Special Forces Command picks us. So that's my somewhat long answer to, hey, what makes brain training different than brain games?
I do want to step in real quick and, just to be clear, not an advertiser or anything like that. Just, you came on the show out of the kindness of your heart. Thank you so much. I do have to say that my father and previous host of Computer America, Craig Grossman, he had a stroke back in 2016, and his doctor actually prescribed him BrainHQ a number of years ago to kind of work with, work on certain areas that he was really deficient and struggling with. And he had a doctor's note. He got it, and he was definitely working with BrainHQ to work through things like memory, short term, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. I didn't know that before we started this call, Ben. So, but thanks for letting me know. And hey, that's why everyone at Posit Science comes to work every day while working from home. But anyway, and does our work because we know that the science is so powerful from what we've seen in the lab. And like I said, we want to get out of the lab and help people, whether it's your dad, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's anyone else who wants to have sharper, better cognitive performance.
Yeah, I really didn't tell you. I honestly didn't really remember it because it was 2 or 3 years ago that he was really using it, but it certainly gave him something to sit there, work on, and he could. I think he knew the problems he had, but to see it on a chart and see his improvement as well, to quantify. And I know it's not like a strict, this is a medical diagnosis kind of application, but he could see day to day that this is what I need to work on. This is in need of improvement. Your product helps, and I just want to say that.
All right. Well, that's kind of you, and I'm happy to hear the story because that's it's again why that's why we do this. Perfect. And I guess what I would say is I talked to a lot of doctors who are very negative about brain health problems, kind of for the reasons we talked about a little while ago. Hey, once your brain's broken, it doesn't get better. And it's disappointing when I talk to doctors like that because the science is really in. So I'm glad that your dad got really good medical care in that way and talked to a doctor who said, hey, you may have suffered a huge setback in your brain health, but hey, there are things you can do, right? You don't just have to sit here and think, well, that's it for me, I guess, because that's such a not helpful message to receive.
No. And so the second part of that question I wanted to kind of touch on as well was that you, of course, had, that's how you're different from other games, quote unquote, on the market. But my understanding, you're also not advocating for like replacing crossword puzzles and things like that. Like, if anything, you might see improvement in crossword puzzling. You might see improvement in video games, right? Like, it's not either or.
Once you realize that the brain is classically capable of change, of course, a great way to make your brain change in a helpful direction is brain training. But once you really, really grapple and wrestle with the idea that, hey, the brain is an organ of your body, right? Just like your heart or your stomach, or your liver, there's actually lots of things people can do to make their brains healthier. And, the science has really just come in on this more and more over the past few years. So we now know, for example, that physical exercise is actually pretty important for brain health. And, you might ask, well, how's exercise change my brain, right? I get it changes my muscles and my heart. But actually having a healthier heart's good for your brain, right? Lowering your blood pressure reduces pressure that actually comes and hits on your brain from blood moving through your brain. Reducing your risk of stroke and heart attacks, obviously good for your brain. Better heart health, in that sense, is better brain health. We know that there's a big role for diet, nutrition, and brain health. If you eat what's called the Mediterranean diet, which a lot of people have moved towards for heart health, that's actually a pretty brain healthy diet as well. And, why is that again? Well, one big reason is that if you eat a Mediterranean diet and you're eating healthier, you're going to be processing blood sugar better, right? You're lowering your risk of type 2 diabetes, as you probably know. Well, the brain actually consumes about 40% of the energy that the body consumes. So if you're making your metabolic system healthier, you're better able to process blood sugar. You're helping your brain because that's what's eating up all that blood sugar one way or the other. We know about the role of sleep, right? Your brain's actually rebuilding itself and learning while you sleep. So get a good night's sleep. It's good for brain health. So there's a lot of things that are good for brain health in this way. Social connections, making sure you stay, have good hearing and good vision, all kinds of things like that. Now, a few of the things you mentioned, video games. I love video games, as I mentioned. They probably are somewhat helpful for brain health. In the sense that, they usually involve speed and so forth. The challenge with video games is often they're not really adaptive, right? They're at a difficulty level that they're at. And if it's too hard for you, well, I guess you're not going to play this game, are you?
Right.
On the other hand, if you absolutely master it, well, you're probably not really changing your brain health too much. So that's important. And crosswords here, I got to tell you, I'm usually like the bearer of bad news on crossword puzzles.
Oh, yeah,
so, people come to me all the time. They say, hey, I do crosswords all the time. Am I helping my brain health? And there's two issues that come up. The first of which is, hey, most people that I talk to who do crossword puzzles, they have been doing them forever. And what that means is that they're not really challenging their brain with something novel anymore, right? There's not a lot of new learning going on. The other thing about crossword puzzles is it doesn't really train the speed and accuracy of your brain performance. Think about what you're doing on a crossword puzzle. You're mostly sitting there thinking. And I get that it kind of feels like your brain is busy, it feels like your brain is doing something, but you don't have to process information quickly and accurately in the way that the exercises that I talked about in BrainHQ do. And then, really, again, you just have to look to the science. A beautiful study done at the University of Virginia a number of years ago by Tim Salthouse, and, looked at a lot of people of different ages, gave them a questionnaire. How many crossword puzzles do you do a week? Sorts them into people who do a lot of crossword puzzles, people who do none. Mm-hmm. And you see two interesting things. The people who do a lot of crossword puzzles have better cognitive function. So that sounds good, right?
Right.
However, both groups are declining at exactly the same rate on the average over time. And what does that tell us? It tells us that crossword puzzles do not slow cognitive decline, but people who are smarter do crossword puzzles. That's really what it comes down to. So, hey, if you like crossword puzzles, hey, man, knock yourself out, right? People should do the things they love to do. I'm not here to slag it.
Right.
But if you're thinking about brain health, brain training, physical exercise, sleep, diet, or even just pick a new kind of puzzle, right? There's so many great board games out there. Pick something you can do socially that involves some new learning, and ideally something that's going to push your speed and accuracy as well.
Perfect. Yeah. And I can definitely see, and I'm sure with your science background, I don't have to tell you, but, causation, correlation,
Exactly. Yeah. I wasn't even going to get into that. That's pretty much the story of crossword puzzles in a nutshell there.
Right. And what about Wordle, since it's in the news?
Well, at least it was new, right? I mean, again, you can go at least some way towards brain health by making sure that you are adopting a life where you're constantly learning and tackling new challenges, right? Basically, that's keeping your brain plastic and capable of change. So the fact that Wordle is this new phenomenon is probably the best thing about it. Again, a challenge with Wordle from a real brain health perspective is, again, you're not challenging your brain to be faster and more accurate. You're kind of staring at thinking a lot. So we could do something a little bit better than that. But, maybe I should take that back to the lab and say, hey, can we come up with a version of Wordle that challenges speed and accuracy at the same time? And then maybe we'll be getting somewhere.
I mean, Wordle does have that built-in 5 guesses and you're out, and it does give you context clues.
Yeah, like maybe if you take those 5 guesses in like an hour, right?
But of course, set a time limit. Set a time limit. I think that would actually be
a helpful way to think about it.
That would definitely be very cool. So there's that.
We're talking about.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say one more thing. When we're talking about all these things that can contribute to brain health, I certainly want to call out that, hey, Tom Brady and his team wrote a whole book on the TB12 method. And I think one of the interesting things about the approach that Tom and his team took to physical health is there was no one magic bullet, right? It's not like you're going to do this 3 times a week and then you're going to have the physical performance of Tom Brady. It was like, hey, there's a lot to this around the stretching and the pliability and the specific exercises and the endurance. And it was really this very multimodal approach to overall health. And of course, BrainHQ and brain health were a part of that. But I think that's how all of us should be thinking about our physical health and our brain health, which is, there's never going to be that magic bullet, just do a little bit of this and you're fine. Although, again, we're pretty happy with contributions BrainHQ makes, but it's about, putting together a brain healthy lifestyle around how you're challenging your brain, you're making your brain faster, more accurate. You are living a life that's full of learning, that's keeping your brain plastic and capable of change. That's what's going to take people to a top level of performance. That's what's going to give people a resilient brain that, goes the distance.
Right. Yeah. And like so many tools and, personal fitness and so on and so forth, a tool will help you to reach your goals, but no one tool will, just set you up for complete success. So I'm very glad that you kind of gave that little asterisk, but clearly there are ways that you can improve and improve faster. So I wanted to kind of wrap this up because I've already had you for 45 minutes. And I promise
it's been a great conversation. I just looked at the clock, but it's been super. I should probably tell people, just because you have the screen open here, hey, if you want to go try the exercises that Tom Brady did, how do you go about that? So you got the page right open there, but I'll read it out loud for your listeners, which is,
sure.
Hey, just open up a web browser, go to TB12, like Tom Brady 12, TB12.brainhq.com. That's the site that we run with Tom and the TB12 Sports Training Organization. You can actually register for free. When you register for free, it'll give you one free exercise a day. So that's, give you a chance to try it out, see if you like it. It puts you on the schedule that is the one that Tom started back when he first started BrainHQ. And then, hey, if you like it, you can subscribe. It's meant to be inexpensive. It's about $8 a month on an annual subscription basis, and you will be training like Tom. So if you're thinking about it, come give it a try.
That's exactly what I was going to get into. I was going to get into the nuts and bolts of the actual product. Is it an app? Is it browser only? Android, Apple, and how much? Although you just said $8 a month.
It's come start on the web, because you can drop into the TB12 application. But once you're registered, you can download the app for iPhone, for Android, for tablets, for phones. I think the most important thing about a brain training program, beyond that it's shown to work, is, hey, it can meet you where you're at. And we got people training on their laptops. We got people sitting back on the couch on their tablets. We got people who got 5 free minutes in the car while they're waiting in line, pick out their phone. The best brain training app, after it's shown to work, is the one that, fits into your life and you can make sure that you do. So yeah, BrainHQ is available on all those platforms.
Perfect. Okay. And I'll leave you with the last word, Doctor. Is there any area that we didn't talk about that you wanted to highlight?
I would just kind of double back to where we start, which is, hey, the brain is capable of change, and it is going to remodel, rebuild, and rewire itself in response to what you ask it to do. And if you ask it to do things that are constantly challenging itself, that are making it faster and more accurate, that are pushing it in ways that it hasn't been pushed before, you're going to have a sharp, fast brain. You're going to have great cognitive function. Your brain's going to go the distance over your life. And I think, that's really what Tom and the TB12 organization kind of taught us, is that, hey, absolutely anyone can have a great brain. If you have a great one, make it greater. So take care of yourselves, and happy brain training, I guess I'll stop with. Thanks.
No, I think you said that perfectly. And I think with all that, once again, we'll have a link over in the in the show notes, and the music means that we're going to wrap this up. But once again, everyone, we have been talking to the CEO of Posit Science and developer of BrainHQ, Dr. Henry Mahncke. And Doctor, thank you for coming back on the program. Looking forward to our next conversation. Let's not make it 3 years. Let's make it a bit shorter than that.
Ben, it's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Our pleasure. So everyone, once again, computeramerica.com. Find everything there. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.